Joining me now on this special episode of Locally Sourced CP is Mark Lambie of the El Paso Times, photojournalist. Sir, thank you for joining me.
Cool.
And also, other guest, first timer on the show is Raul Valles from Telemundo El Paso, photojournalist there as well. Thanks for joining me today, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. We are talking about the tragic day here in El Paso, August 3rd, the Walmart shooting. I was trying to just get a perspective to have people know what it's like covering a tragedy like this through the eyes of photojournalists and reporters. People don't know how it can affect someone like us. First question I'll go to Mark was, talk a little bit about that day. What were you expecting when you got the call, and talk a little about what the scene looked like when you first arrived?
I was at UTEP football practice, like early in the morning, and then I got a text from the office saying that there was a mass shooting at Walmart, and of course, I didn't believe it. Like, we get all those calls, we get bomb threats and shooters. We get these calls all the time, and they're never real. So I guess I didn't leave immediately. Like, I didn't run to my car or anything. But eventually they started texting me like crazy, like, are you on your way? And I was like, yeah, I'm on my way. So I got there, still thinking it wasn't really going to be a thing. Maybe like one person got shot and whoever reported it maybe overreacted or something. But yeah, once I got down the hill between the Sam's and the Walmart, dude, I could tell it was real. Like, it was a crazy, just law enforcement everywhere and people running everywhere. And like, usually it's the cops immediately will grab you and be like, oh, you can't be here, dude. But it was just so chaotic. Like, nobody paid attention to anybody else. Like, nobody, like, I was photographing people, and it was like the first time in my life where it was like nobody even genuinely never even noticed, because it was just, they were so preoccupied with what was going on. And it was so intense that like it was just, everybody was just in a state of shock, and it was done. So it was a crazy, weird scene.
Wow, that sounds pretty crazy. I had separate experience just staying home and getting phone calls from family, everyone checking up on me. But just hearing that from you, it just sounds intense and scary, man. Ro, you were sent to a different location when you got the call. Talk a little about what went on that day before you were called in, and where you had to report to.
It was just a typical weekend for me. I had just woken up an hour before everything had happened. So, I was kind of still trying to wake up. It felt surreal in the fact that it's like Mark had said, I didn't get the call. I actually saw on FitFam, of all places, that basically said something was happening at Cielo Vista, and to stay clear from the area. And within 10 minutes, the El Paso Police Department has a phone line that they call there's a list that they have where they call the journalists, and it's an automated thing. As soon as I got that, it was within 10 minutes of me seeing that post on FitFam, and it was like, oh fuck, something's actually happening. And the first thing I thought was call my mom and tell her to stay away. I really didn't think much of it, because stuff like that doesn't happen. So I was just in my mind like, cool. It wasn't until the work phone rang from the actual station that I'm like, oh, we're working this. We're all in for now. So I show up, and it's the first time that I think my news director, my general manager was kind of leading the charge on everything. She kind of gathered us in the control room and was like, all right, so here's the plan. You two are going to go to Cielo Vista. You two are going to go to UMC. You two are going to just try and get interviews from whoever you can, wherever you can. And then the other people just stay on standby. So I was the crew that was sent to UMC. And it was, when we got there, it was basically not as chaotic as Walmart was, but that was the first time I had ever seen the UMC side of Alameda kind of being cordoned off and guided by police, and the fact that there really isn't much traffic there usually, but they were making sure that ambulances, wherever they were coming from, were basically first come, first serve. You screw all the other traffic, ambulances go first. And thankfully, I didn't get to see too much of what happened at Ground Zero, as we called it at the time. But it was still seeing, for me, the most thing, the one thing I remember the most from that day is a little girl being gurneyed off the ambulance, holding her, I'm assuming her mom's hand, and into the hospital. And I mean, seeing kind of what I would say shell shock on that girl's face is, I don't know how to describe it. Like, she just saw hell.
Wow. That's I can't even describe on how I feel, man. That's just so tragic. I mean, not even being there and just like hearing you guys talk about it, it's so surreal still. Like I still like feel like I don't even know what to say about it. I mean, I was at home. I mean, I don't do what you guys do anymore, and just knowing what you guys had to go through and see out there, it's been crazy. I know, seeing the news coverage from national side and local side, you guys, it was like an everyday thing for a while. Mark, let me ask you. I know sometimes public can get a little rude or a little rowdy when the press is out there covering something like this. Did you experience any of that, or how different it was? It a different scene, or how would you describe the public when you were out there?
No, I didn't know. Like I said, like people were so in shock, and nobody could really process what was going on, especially the people who were coming out of the Walmart. I mean, they were just like, I mean, catatonic, man. They were like zombies, dude. It was like this feeling of just complete confusion and disbelief, and like, and yeah, nobody's really said much of anything. You know, I interviewed a couple people on video. There's actually one clip that we posted for this anniversary thing, one of the stories, and I talked to this guy, and he said that he grabbed his mom, and they were in the entrance between the two doors, you know, the outside doors and the, you know, where you get the carts and then you go back in. Mm-hmm. And he said he grabbed the shooter was on his way in. At the same time, they were on their way out, and he grabbed his mom and shoved her between some vending machines. Like they were kind of close together, and he just jammed her in there. He said the guy shot towards them but missed, and he's, you know, and I asked him, did you ever think, or I don't remember exactly what, something along the lines of, did you ever think you'd see something like this in your lifetime? And he said, you never think you're going to see you never think you're going to see another woman get her head blown off. You know? I mean, what an answer, right? Like, yeah, like, of course not, dude. You know? And that was the scene, dude. Everybody hugging. Yeah, it was pretty fucked up.
I mean, it was real amazing how this city came together after this, forming El Paso Strong and things like that, and just the way everyone kind of just joined together. I mean, in a matter of like hours, they had a memorial. EPISD had one of the nearby schools opened up for triage area, and also for where families can meet and rejoin each other. Just to see the way the city came together was awesome, and it gives me chills thinking that I live in a city like that, knowing that a whole city can come together like that, and it's just amazing. And it's just no matter who talks about something like this, it's always emotional, Mark. And just like I can't thank you guys enough for talking about it, because I know sometimes it's hard.
And
Yeah, they say it. All right.
it's it's one of the, speaking of being hard for us to talk about it, I recently realized how badly I fucked up in the at the big when like for weeks after it had happened, there was all these outreach and like
Yeah.
counseling services being offered to everyone.
Right.
And foolishly, I thought, I mean,
That's
this is part of the job. Yeah, it's like it didn't really affect me then, but coming up on the year, it's been hard on me, like revisiting all these stories and interviewing everyone. It's like it sucks knowing that you have to put these people back in the shoes of that day, when it's probably something that I don't think anyone would want to do. And it's like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah,
And
I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things I hated the most when covering something, when we had to like kind of revisit someone that had just had a tragedy, and then something this big. I can't even imagine I couldn't even imagine doing that now. It sounds like it's really hard to do. I mean, Raul, what's that?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, man. I'm good.
I was just going to tell you real quick that like last week I went down to Chihuahua. There's a whole family that got shot. We did a story on this family. The father, Mario de Alba, was in the bathroom. He heard the gunshots start, and he ran out, and he kind of shrouded himself over his kids, over his wife and his daughter, and they were all shot. He's still in the hospital in Chihuahua. A year later, he's still there. You know, and they were told, we're not going to charge you guys anything. You're not going to have to pay for this, and which is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it received over $1 million in medical bills, and now their visas come into the country are at risk. It's really messed up. We did a story on them, so it's important. I just thought it was important for people to know that the last victim is not out of the hospital yet. A year later, his body is completely atrophied. It's going to take him a year to start walking again. Like,
God.
Like these stories are still, I mean, we're not even done with this thing, dude. I mean, for all we know, the last person hasn't died. I mean, that's a messed up thing to say, but I mean, there's no guarantee. He's been in the hospital for a year for a reason, you know? Yeah. Like the story isn't even over yet. We're a year into it. So yeah. And it didn't end the day, you know, there were the memorials, you know, we had 22 funerals, 23 now.
Mm-hmm.
Like it never ended. It never ended, and it still hasn't ended.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, you can't put it into words. You really can't. It's just like, I mean, just seeing the raw emotion from you, Mark, it hits me harder too. Like just knowing that it's still, we're still having to go through this, that the city, these people, and the victims, these families.
Yeah.
It just,
and what Raul said, man, like Raul said, that little girl, dude, like her life has changed forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like I just saw the people's faces coming out, dude. She saw it. Like, imagine, like, not just the people who were killed, like, horrible, obviously, but think of the people that were in their lives.
Yeah,
never came.
And speaking of emotion, I did ask Armando Viela from the El Dorado to come on with us, but I mean, as many as you know, he was actually in the parking lot when everything started, and
Yep.
he's just I didn't want to force him to do it, and he didn't feel comfortable coming on, so I that's just another example on how it'll affect anybody, and it was just really emotional for him to see that and go through that experience.
Yeah.
I mean,
and Armando somehow, like, dude, what a photojournalist. This guy rolled video and the whole thing, dude, like, you know, just to make sure it was documented, you know?
Yeah.
And dude, what he saw, dude, I saw like 30 seconds of video and I couldn't watch it anymore. Like,
Dang.
yeah, dude.
It's pretty messed up. I mean, it's unfortunate that anyone had to go through that. I also wanted to talk to Jorge Salgado from El Paso Inc. And he couldn't join us during this Zoom interview, but I interviewed him a little earlier, and this is what he had to say. I know it's been a difficult time, man, especially with today, the August 3rd anniversary coming up with the El Paso shooting. It's hard on a lot of people, especially a lot of the witnesses and things like that. And I've been I was speaking with Mark and Raul, talking about photojournalists covering events like this. I mean, talk a little about, I just want to ask you to talk a little about what you were doing when you got the call and what you were thinking when you were getting to the scene.
So I remember that day pretty vividly, even though it felt like a series of days and that kind of just jumbled up into one. I was in a drive-through with my brother. We were just getting some green chili burgers, and we were stopped. And so I pull up my phone, and my cousin had sent me a link to a possible active shooter, and so I opened it. The first thing you think is like, okay, it's probably a hoax. Like, I think that's anyone's first inclination. That's kind of what you're hoping, is like, I don't want this to be true, and I hope it's not true. So little by little, like, I kept getting more and more notifications. And so, luckily I had my cameras in my car. My understanding at first, as the details kind of became unscrambled, I went to Cielo Vista Mall first. And I was there for a little bit. I pulled up right as they were evacuating the mall. SWAT was, any kind of law enforcement you could possibly see was there, arriving, preparing, pulling people out of the mall. And my brother hung out in my car like a trooper for a couple of hours, just waiting for me to work. Just so happened that I had my cameras in my car, and that was pretty much it. I sent a text to my editors and my bosses that I was going to be in the area, letting them know that I was trying to cover it and trying to be as safe as I could.
I guess if you can, for any of the viewers, can you talk a little about how it is behind the camera, being at a scene like this, and having to you have to do your job. Talk a little about, some of the things you went through the past few days covering what was going on, and like being interviewed by some of the national news as well.
Yeah, so I think one thing I tend to forget about, because it kind of just happened. So I had posted a video on Twitter, and CBS had sent me a message. We spoke on the phone as things were happening, just trying to give them a sense of what the scene was. So that, that's intense. You're still trying to actively look to see what's happening and do your job, but you also feel like you have this necessity to be able to, like, say, like, they don't have feet on the ground here, obviously, but it was such a significant story in that moment that they try to do everything they can to just get eyes and have people tell the story. For me, it's hard to think about, like, the fear. The fear doesn't really exist in those moments when there's a camera up to your eye. You're almost hyper attentive to everything that's going around, and so you're really just watching. I think you have some moments where you stop and think about your safety, but for the most part, you're kind of just, what's happening? What am I seeing? What do people need to know about the story that's developing, and trying to, like, really relay those images, because sometimes those images can help clear a scene and really tell the story of what's happening. Sometimes putting people at ease, saying, like, okay, well, everyone's out of the mall. We are doing our best to keep this area safe.
Is there anything that sticks out in your mind with the year anniversary coming up? Is there anything that sticks out of your mind that has just stuck with you, like, from that time until now?
I just remember that day being so long, and all the detail shifting as, you know, as they're revealing that more people have passed away, you know, it hurts more and more. One thing that did stick out, there was a resident in the neighborhood close by who lent us their front yard and lent us electricity, and they made sure we were taken care of. And it was an especially hot day that day, from what I remember, even though it rained that night. And I think hearing that people were still lining up at a blood bank that day, like, that told me so much, and told everyone so much about what we needed to know about El Paso, and how people they're just going to do what's best for their community, regardless of what the situation is or how heightened everyone's fear is. They were there to help, and to help do better. One thing that was particularly tough was covering Javier, who was the youngest victim, covering his memorial at Horizon High School. You know, I think that was probably the first time I had really, like, you know, it was a different experience. I remember holding the camera up to my eye and just having tears falling down my face. And, you know, and when you're shooting events like that, you can kind of suppress those feelings for a little bit. But that day, I just, you know, I thought to how I was when I was 16, and it wasn't, you know, I was never fearful of just being in a store and having that happen. I've never felt unsafe like that in my life, and walking through a sea of teenagers, and just like, you know, they had just lost their friend. They had lost one of their classmates. It was so heartbreaking, just, you know, seeing the parents and everyone trying to be resilient. And that one, you know, seeing Javier's photos particularly tough for me, because I remember being there, and I just, like, I just remember so much about being that age and how awful it was that had to happen when it didn't have to happen.
Yeah, it's pretty, even just hearing your story, man, the way you feel, it kind of you can feel it, man. You can feel the anxiety, you can feel the emotion, especially coming from you. I mean, it was a horrible day, and I wish it didn't happen. And a lot of people here in El Paso, I'm sure, feel the same way. And I know you mentioned before we started about what you see, how people feel about the El Paso Strong logo and things like that. Tell me a little bit about what we were talking about with the El Paso Strong when you see it.
So the El Paso Strong is a little bit, if you've ever seen the movie Inception, he has like a little die that he rolls, so he knows, you know, like, if he's dreaming or not dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
That the El Paso Strong thing it felt that way for me, because every day I would drive by the billboard and I would see it. And even though it's like this huge sign of resilience, and I can appreciate that, and I love it so much, it's pretty hurtful, because it is, you know, my feelings with those words are associated to the worst thing that's ever happened here. And so, you know, anytime I see it, I can't help but think back to August 3rd and be like, man, like, I was just in denial for a few days, and, you know, driving by that sign would wake me up, and it's rough, even seeing it now, and I get a little emotional, and it's hard not to think about those lives that were lost that day.
I understand. You know, hopefully we wish those people, those families, well. And if you want to see more of George's work, I'll include it in the description below. You can check it out. I'm sure there'll be plenty of photos and memorials going on around town. I'll also include that information below. George, thank you so much for joining me today. Anything else you want to say or add before we kick it back to Mark and Raul?
I'm proud of the way people responded here, everyone. In the worst moment that the city's seen, people were at their best, and I'm absolutely proud of that. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else before that or after that. I love it here, and so many of the people that I've come across that have either been here for a weekend or been transplants like myself, they really appreciate it for the hospitality and the type of people we have here. There's some truly great people, and I'm forever thankful that El Paso is a part of my life.
Oh, thank you. Kind words, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. If you ever need anything, man, you know where to find me.
Absolutely.
Thanks, George. Well, that's what George had to say. Raul, let me ask you, man. From all of this with the anniversary coming out, during you covering this, is there anything, even if it's the little girl you described holding her mom's hand when they got bussed in, is there anything that's going to stick out in your mind when you when you think about it, or is anything like a ray of hope that you experienced during this time?
I mean, it goes to show from the city coming together, from the blood donations to, I mean, just helping one another out. For a couple of weeks afterwards, it's like that was the most united that the city, I think, has ever been. And I think we're going to see something similar to that coming up for the anniversary, because I mean, just talking about it now sucks. And it's something, I think it's something that the city is going to need, because whether it happened a year ago, whether it happened however long ago, it's like Mark was saying, it's still happening. It hasn't technically ended. And I mean, we really don't know how long the effects of that day is gonna have on the city. So it's like, I really just hope that we come back together and to what we were at that following that shooting.
Mark, anything else you would like to say or add before we end today?
No. Yeah, I'll just echo what Raul said, is like, it'd be really nice, like, especially with all the division going on in our country right now, and how people feel about each other right now, is it doesn't matter. None of that stuff is important, dude. What's important is like what we saw the days after that.
Right. What about you, Raul? Do you have anything else you'd like to say or add?
Just that this is coming from personal experience right now. It doesn't matter if you don't think you need to talk to someone. Just talk to whoever about it, because as much as you want to believe that it didn't affect you, it has. It just hasn't shown yet.
Right. It's I'd also talked to George and let him know. I mean, I've never experienced anything as tragic as this while I was on the job, but I'll still see little things here and there that'll trigger something that I covered, and it's like, whoa. But I mean, nothing can compare to what you guys have gone through, what you guys have seen during that. I'd just like to thank you both for joining me today, and I know it was really hard. I didn't mean to get you guys bring up the bad memories, but it's just I like to thank you both for doing and providing just such great stuff, and being a member of the media, and thank you for doing your job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It sucks that a tragedy like this had to bring the city together like this, but I think El Paso did what they needed to do. And we were El Paso strong. But you guys, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
All right.
See you, Raul.
Later, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Later.